Welcome to the Dispatch Podcast. This is Adam, editorial director, and the hour is almost 2 a.m. on the last night of the Republican convention. Trump gave his elaborate speech. We responded with an after hours Dispatch Live, and you're about to listen to the first 30 minutes of that live stream. If you want to listen to the full stream, which I highly recommend, it was more manic than usual, please become a Dispatch member. It's on the Skiff, our members only podcast feed. You can become a member by going on thedispatch.com and subscribing. The Skiff is waiting for you. And with that, let's dive right in.
Jonah?
Yeah.
It's still going.
Yeah. I think he's finally getting into the groove. I think he's really found his stride.
Yeah.
All
right. Welcome to Dispatch Live. I'm Sarah Isger. That's Jonah Goldberg. And we think Steve fell asleep on the couch.
After making fun of us for saying this is going too late and we're tired like 2 hours ago, and he mocked us, and now we think he's comatose.
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and read some of this. He admitted to falling asleep on the couch earlier. We were getting texts as of... Steve texted 7 minutes ago, and he's gone now. But yeah, Steve was bragging that he doesn't need sleep. I'm pretty good at getting kids to sleep, actually. Thanks, Steve. That's super helpful to tell a parent of a child under 1 year old. All right. So, Jonah, can we give overall impressions of the Republican National Convention? Are you calling Steve?
I am. Hey, Steve, we're doing this thing, so you might as well just come check in. He's sort of done. All right. Except for the part you fell asleep during. Anyway, all right. Me and Sarah are talking. You come join us when you feel convenient. Okay. So up until this last hour, I would say it was among the most disciplined conventions I've ever... Well, I should say most disciplined convention. I've seen a lot of disciplined conventions. It was the most disciplined thing I've ever seen the Trump campaign do.
Right. Compared to 2016 and 2020, where you really just didn't have the professionalization of a convention that we'd had in the past. This is a professional convention, a compelling convention. I totally agree. I think it's as professionally run as 2012, but I thought it was a lot more compelling than 2012.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think absolutely true. This was a unified convention. I don't want to seem too much of a griper or a detractor from that, because I think there are a lot of people with diverse points of view out there. But at the same time, Donald Trump spent his entire presidency and most of his post-presidency purging non-Trumpy politicians. Right. Starting with the Jeff Flakes and the Corkers and on all those kinds of people, and swapping out traditional Reaganite or Bushy or whatever Republican state party apparati, and replacing it with Trump aligned ones. And so the unity of the convention, I think, can be a little misleading, because it's kind of like a selection bias.
Sure.
If you've replaced everybody with pro-Trump people and, kick everyone else to the curb, then of course the people who show up at the thing are going to seem more unified because it's a different party.
Jonah, I'm watching just right now as the family has all come on stage. It's very interesting to see the relationship that is developing or not developing between his vice presidential nominee. So he is surrounded by his family, and then you have Senator J.D. Vance and his wife Usha really off to the side. Normally you have the big moment, right, where they hold the hands in the center. Yeah. And that at least has not happened. Yeah, just sort of fascinating. Okay, so that was your impression of the overall RNC convention. Oh, look, it's Steve Hayes. Thanks
Hey,
for
Steve.
joining us, Steve.
Yeah, hi everybody.
Okay, impressions of the overall convention.
Steve, I've already given mine.
Because we've been here for a while.
Well, I didn't want to start. I wanted to get every last minute of the speech. I can't believe you guys started this. Did you hear what he said right at the end? Like the last paragraph is unbelievable. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
He's ditching JD Vance
Mhm.
and he's instead picking Doug Burgum.
Okay. Yeah, huge.
Yeah, so overall impressions of the convention. I think, who knows? I don't know whether these conventions matter or not. I think overall they had a pretty good convention. I heard you talking about the unity in the hall, the unity among the people who were there. I think that was real. I think there was. I think it felt sort of unified. They felt excited. Undoubtedly, I talked to one delegate who said unified by a bullet. And in the aftermath of the assassination attempts, it brought people together. Does that matter? I don't know. I have no idea if that matters.
Honestly. I literally don't even see. Oh, no, there's JD Vance. I finally found him on the stage. Okay. He's way over off on the side there. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about JD Vance as the pick and his speech. Jonah, were you surprised it was Vance in the end? Did you think that Vance accomplished what he needed to with his speech last night?
So I was thinking towards the end that it was that I got caught up in the Burgum boomlet for a little bit. As one does. It's so seductive.
Bergmentum.
And
that is something that a sentence never been uttered before.
Well, so it's funny. So last night I get back to my hotel and I'm watching Burgum talk and I'm like, oh, now I see why they picked Vance, because I thought Burgum had a really kind of lame, he's a nice man and he tried, but it was just there was no spark to it whatsoever. And then I saw Vance speak and I was like, why didn't they pick Rubio? Because I think Vance it was a bad speech. I think given the richness of his personal story, the number of anecdotes and content in his memoir, to screw up that speech so profoundly that there was no cadence to it, there was nothing propulsive about it that made you sort of like want to hear what the next sentence was. And when the entire crowd is trying to help you by doing, I can't remember exactly what they were chanting. It was something like Biden must go, or he's got to go, or something like that. And then Vance at one point just sort of half raises his hand and says, I agree. And I mean, it was better than saying I concur, but not by a lot, right?
I agree. I agree.
That would have been better. And so I thought Vance's speech leaning on the biography and all that kind of stuff was great. Fine, whatever, good. I think the capacity of the left and the MSNBC crowd to lose their minds over interpreting it is helpful to him. But so far, he has not shown me why it was obvious that he should have been the pick, and that's unfair because it's just a convention. And you're right, conventions probably don't matter. But
Steve, I do think that the pick of JD Vance matters a lot. I think it matters because he didn't pick someone else.
Mm-hmm.
If he had picked a Rubio or a Burgum or Haley or any of these people, all of the people I just named came up through the old Republican Party. They are creatures of that party. They were elected in that party. JD Vance is really one of the only national figures who wasn't. So whether JD Vance is politically additive at this point or not, Trump has killed off the old Republican Party by saying, like, my successor is not going to come from that. There will be no oxygen given to that. it's over. This is going to be a clean break. So I don't think it really matters whether JD Vance nailed the speech, shows up in anything, if people just cross out the P and the E on their signs from last time, and just write V and A on it. I think it is more about not just Trump's legacy, which it is. It's actually more about not allowing that old guard any more time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think the pick does matter. I'm not with sort of conventionalism that this doesn't matter because Trump is so big and he fills the room, and so the VP pick doesn't matter. I think it does matter. And look, I mean, you didn't have to strain to see the symbolism. They played this anti-George W. Bush song every time J.D. Bush came to the stage. Every time J.D. Vance came to the stage, his speech. I agree with Jonah. I think I had maybe my expectations were too high going in, and I don't think he met them. But it's hard to imagine somebody with the incredible biography that he has. I mean, he is 39 years old and he has lived a life of tremendous accomplishment.
They literally made a movie about his life before he had turned 30.
Yeah. I mean, Hollywood blockbuster life. And I thought that was the best part of the speech, but it was still flat to me. I thought there was a really nice moment with his mother, like actually affecting moment. But, the job of the speechwriters was to tie his personal biography with the policy and the advocacy of Donald Trump that would follow. And I think they failed entirely. It was a disjointed speech. I didn't think it really worked as a speech. Having said that, I talked to several people here who watched the speech, were not sort of big Trump people, and said, yeah, you know what? He seems approachable. He seems normal. I like him. And it might not have, won any rhetoric competitions, but he seems like a normal guy. And that's what I want as Trump's running mate. So in terms of the speech itself, I didn't think it did what it ought to do. Other people seem to think it succeeded. In terms of the pick, I agree with you entirely. I think it's a significant pick. He is not, and I've said this before, I don't regard JD Vance as just MAGA 2.0. He is MAGA plus. He comes from this post-liberal, new right part of the conservative movement or conservative movement plus, and it goes well beyond Donald Trump. You don't have to look far or look hard to hear JD Vance in his own voice advocate for policy positions for rule breaking that goes beyond sort of what we already know. And I think if he's chosen as vice president, sworn in as vice president, we will see that, and we'll see it early in the administration.
There's lots of that I want to take some issue with, but we've got John McCormack, Mike Warren, and David Drucker all with their own various thoughts, feelings, hair. Mike, you were there last night.
Yeah. So the feeling in the room, and I've been asking people who watched Vance on TV, if it felt as flat as it felt in the room. And
you mean JD Vance's speech, not the one tonight. We haven't even
correct.
gotten to that.
Sorry. Yeah. I was continuing the conversation.
Oh, I know. I just want to, I don't want people, we're all tired. We need to provide roadmaps here.
The only thing that ever happened, is happening, or will ever happen is Trump's speech. So, yes. Well, hold on.
That's what it felt like.
Reset. I'm talking about Vance's speech.
Okay.
It felt very flat in the room. And there were a couple of moments that stuck out to me where I thought a more experienced speechifier would have handled it better. And so that's not even really a dig at JD Vance. I just think he needs more practice. Remember, he's only been in elected politics for 2 years. But there were the various chants that happened. Like at one point he said, "This is a good crowd." And the audience of delegates responded by chanting, "Yes, we are," which is a very weird chant in and of itself. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And And I think you can see this, whether it's as somebody like Donald Trump, who's been speaking publicly for longer than I've been alive, or somebody like, say, Nikki Haley, who has spoken at, county Republican Party meetings for the last 20 plus years. Like, you learn to sort of plow through those moments. You don't let the audience, the applause lines go on until they end. You don't wait till the last person finishes clapping before you continue with the speech. And I think there were so many moments like that where it just showed kind of how green he was. And I do think it matters, because I think it will be a problem for the Trump Vance campaign if Vance is not as useful of a surrogate as maybe they hoped. And the person I was watching last night from the floor, he wasn't that close to me, but I was trying to spot as much as I could his reactions, was Donald Trump. And I got the feeling that Trump was a little underwhelmed by how his brand new running mate performed. Which,
again, you notice then after Trump's speech, JD Vance is not next to Donald Trump on that stage. And you get the sense that perhaps that's not a coincidence. All right, David, let's turn on your mic. Let's hear some of this noise, NPR style, the vibes.
Right. This is why I was a little worried.
No, it's great.
The music's live. There were a lot of balloons. And I'm sure it's something we all discussed, but it was basically a Trump rally after that initial opening that was rather un-Trump-like, emotionally heartfelt, quiet. It was, Trump was telling a story, and I think for many people it was new. I mean, for me it felt new, and I thought that was very effective. And he actually seemed very likable and very endearing. And then little by little, the teleprompter paused, and then it paused some more. And pretty soon it was a Trump rally. He wasn't as angry as he's been. In fact, he didn't really seem that angry at all. So there is that. We had discussed on the Slack channel whether all the normies went to bed after the good part. And this was for the fans. But man, it was long, and it just felt like I was at a greatest hits concert.
Hey, can I interject one quick thing here? This is a series of 3 tweets by Nate Silver, famed pollster guy.
It's great.
First tweet during Trump's speech. It's a weird but pretty good speech. The past few weeks have gone about as badly as possible for Democrats and their likely underdogs against Trump, regardless of who they nominate. But the opportunity to reset the campaign with a non-Biden nominee is a twist of good fortune. And then about a half hour later, semi-retract this tweet. This speech is boring as F. But there are worse things, politically speaking, than being boring. And then about 23 minutes later, fully retract and rescind, all caps. Sometimes, both parties are trying to throw this election.
Okay, so this gets then to the important question to you, John. Question from Daniel Lawrence. Do you see the convention as changing the trajectory of the race either way?
I don't think the convention changes the race so much as the assassination attempt of the former and likely future president of the United States. I mean, yes, the last hour was a terrible greatest hits concert, and it's jarring. I mean, we just lived through this insane moment in American history where, Trump was shot in the ear, and the first 15, 20 minutes were incredibly compelling. And I think it helped him. I think that definitely helped him. And I really probably, as much as we all don't like having, to endure the last hour, I think that, again, the normal people just turn it off when they're bored. They want to go to bed. I mean, who's watching a political speech past, 11 p.m. on a weekend? So I think that the event of last Saturday matters much, much more than the convention itself. The convention really amplified.
Can I say real quick, I have a West Coast friend who texted during the speech who said, I turned on the TV to see if they were replaying Trump's speech. only to realize it was still going on.
That sounds right. So, Mike, I do want to ask you, I mean, we were told heading into this after Saturday that Trump had ripped up his speech, was going to present unity, not going to mention Joe Biden's name.
Oops.
I mean, I guess there's a few questions here, right? Did any of that get achieved? Because I don't think the answer is necessarily no, just because Trump didn't actually do that over the full course of 90 minutes. Getting the news out that he was going to do that, and then having some of that feeling over the course of this, I don't know that it didn't achieve the unity, thesis, if you will.
I mean, it's an interesting question because what you're really asking is, how will the voters who are still undecided or are still undecided if they're going to come out, how will they interpret the clips of the speech and the sort of interpretation of the speech that will come out when they watch it on their phones or
also
on
in
the
that for
Today Show?
5 days they just heard from a bunch of reporters that Trump ripped up his speech and was going to present this unified, unity message.
Yeah.
Maybe they won't hear any of the speech. There won't be any clips. It's just, I think that's what he was going to do, and I'm sure he did it. Whatever.
Yeah, there's like a very postmodern, like, what matters is what you say the speech will be,
Right.
than what is actually in the speech. I mean, I was struck, and I was saying this in Slack the whole time. Like, if you've been to a Trump rally, after that first 25 minutes, it was a Trump rally.
Mhm.
It was exactly how he is. If people were surprised by what they were hearing, they just haven't, and I don't blame them, but they just haven't been to a Trump rally. This is how he speaks, and I think in a weird way that is a secret weapon of his, because people, except for the hardcore fans, people don't actually listen to the whole Trump rally. And I think if they did, they might sort of have some questions about whether or not he's fit to be president in the next 4 years. And instead, it's like you gloss over it, and the pre-commentary is what matters.
Guys,
David?
I just think we should
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, I want you to make your point, but I also want you to speak to the feeling in the room from these delegates, because I think you had like a sports team basically coming in feeling like they're favored to win this thing. The wind is in their sails. They are more enthusiastic about their candidate than the other side. And I felt like through the TV, we could really feel that up through tonight, even as maybe things lulled during speeches they found boring. So speak also to the crowd that's there.
Yeah, let me. I think the question's a good one, and we're addressing some of this with a good story on the site tomorrow morning. It was a very unified convention, and I've grown so accustomed to covering Republican events and Republicans generally that are disunified. It was very interesting to see. So there are still parts of the party that are not unified, and there are pockets of opposition. But in the convention hall, they were all rowing in the same direction. They're all enthusiastic, and through the speech, the energy was there. So we're talking about this in terms of what we've seen over the years and how it feels to us. And we're trying to figure out how people around the country are going to interpret it. And I've got some thoughts on that, but in the room, they loved it. And one of the qualities of Trump rallies and Trump rally attendees is it's like a Grateful Dead tour. They come for the songs, and they come for the slight variations on the same riffs they've been hearing for years. And so here, they loved it. And I just wanted to say quickly, oftentimes with convention speeches, it's a mixture of the analysis of the speech and the politics of the speech. But in the case of Donald Trump and this campaign, the absolute worst of Trump is built into the price of admission, and he's winning. And so how this speech was interpreted or delivered really doesn't matter. The only thing that really matters is whether he might end up with a different opponent, because voters have taken Trump's measure and they've concluded that however bad he is, he beats the alternative. And so, I think overdoing whether people watch this or didn't watch it or liked it or didn't like it is beside the point.
All right. I do want to get to his opponent, maybe. John, I want to talk quickly about policy, though, and just what we learned about I made the point on Twitter earlier today that we keep using the term Republican Party to refer to two totally different political parties. We basically use the term Republican Party to refer to this party that existed in 2012 and 1984, but we also use the term Republican Party and the people at this convention as the Republican Party. And to me, there's very little that those have in common. This isn't just the evolution of a party. I think there's actually a total shift. Are there any big policy moments that you think are worth highlighting, or what Republican means now?
Well, I thought the most dramatic moment was really the first night of the convention, where you had the Teamsters Union president just totally demagogically denouncing big business, the elites. They have no nation. They only are loyal to the balance sheet and the stock price. You had Amber Rose. I don't know exactly what her title is, but someone who has an OnlyFans page and an internet personality who has praised quote unquote Satanists because they help women in the South get abortions. And there's many more greatest hits from her. And then you also had David Sachs, the billionaire, who said that Putin provoked Russia to launch its full-scale invasion of Ukraine because Putin just so scared that Ukraine might join NATO. So, I mean, there was that. And obviously, the abortion issue, the softening the platform. Today, there was a Faith and Freedom Coalition event. That was Ralph Reed. JD Vance was there. He said that social conservatives will always have a seat at the table. They should give Trump a little bit of grace, and she was so great on Roe. And I mean, these people are there. And again, you got to take a step back. And I think that all the criticism you might get from people on these policy questions, they're willing to be maybe totally muted because of the assassination attempt. I mean, half of the Faith and Freedom Coalition event this morning was talking about how amazing it was and providential in ways that were over the top, I thought, about Trump surviving. So yeah, I mean, it was a big moment. I thought, just the way that this was all Trump. Trump has decided to take the party in every way he finds beneficial to him or he dislikes. I don't think he needs to do a lot of this stuff. I don't think it really helps him all that much. But apparently his campaign does.
Well, as many people say, it's not about comparing your candidate to the almighty, but comparing your candidate to the alternative. Jonah, who is the alternative to Donald Trump?
TBD.
He sounds nice.
It's like FDR.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Biden's going to go. But it's probably Harris. Well, I think. Yeah.
What do you make of the rumors out there that the Democrats are really considering an open convention where some number of candidates would get to make their case to the delegates? They would vote. So remember, on the first ballot at the Democratic National Convention, it's run very differently than the Republican convention. There's basically real delegates and then what used to be called super delegates. That basically you would have this first ballot with just the real delegates. And if no one got a majority of that, then you would add in the former super delegates. And you could have many, many rounds of this going on at the convention. There's been some people who've said that's a totally unrealistic Aaron Sorkin invention of how this can go, a pipe dream for people who think, the Josh Shapiro, Andy Bashir ticket is just right around the corner. And yet there's other people who are like, well, stranger things have happened in the last 48 hours. So
I've actually talked to a few Democrats about this in the last 10, 12, minutes. 24 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I talked to a lot of Democrats about this. I actually think, I'm not saying that they've said this explicitly, but listening to them, I've become kind of convinced that it's possible that you get a hybrid where Biden releases his delegates and says, I endorse Kamala Harris. She's the person I picked to be my vice president, but I want there to be an open process to give as much legitimacy, blah, 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 blah. And then you would get, as one Democrat put it to me, an alliance of super friends that would come together, because basically very few prominent Democrats want the nomination under these circumstances.
Right.
So they would all, in a spirit of party unity, come together to say they endorse Harris too. So it would look like she actually earned it on her own.
Right.
rather than
Interesting.
just had it handed to her. Something
'Cause
like that.
You think about the behind the scenes politics of this, and remember, like, for all of these people, Whitmer, Newsom, Amy Klobuchar, I mean, name your candidate out there.
Stacey
They're
Abrams.
huddling with their people like me, right? And they're working through all of the variations of what's in their interest. And what they're looking at is this idea that maybe Trump isn't beatable no matter what. Maybe you're better off waiting to 2028. And if that's the case, you'd love for Harris to be the nominee because it also prevents her then really from being a legitimate candidate in 2028. Mike.
Can I say something about that? I don't think that is where these Democratic leaders are. I think the panic about a second Trump administration is real, and it is clearing out in this moment. I'm not saying forever. I'm just saying in this moment there is a sort of clarity of mind. You talk to Democrats about this, and they are sincere, like at the highest level, like they're sincerely mortified about what is going on. And there's something about having your back up against the wall that can be clarifying. So I don't think that's happening. I could be wrong. You worked with principals, Sarah, in another life. So maybe you are more privy to things.
If they think Trump's beatable, then of course they think that they're the best person to beat him. The problem will be if they become convinced that this process, like, yes, it would have been great 6 months ago, but now it's too late. And the thing that I think that people underestimate is it's not like you flip a switch, you change the nominee, and they're ready to go. Basically, no matter who is the nominee for the Democrats at this point, there's a huge risk. That person has never been under the heat and the bright lights that they're going to be under. Nobody has been vetted the way that a presidential candidate gets vetted, and they get vetted slowly, right? Through a primary, and then the beginning few months of a general election when things are pretty quiet in the winter and early spring. And this person is going to get dropped into a pot of boiling water. Think about all the candidates who you thought looked pretty good to you before a primary. I mean, we can name them all. Tim Pawlenty, Scott Walker, Kamala Harris comes to mind.
Fred
Ron
Thompson.
DeSantis. Oh, Fred Thompson, right? All of these people who
cigar.
you saw them in the primary, you were like,
but
that person's got what it takes to go all the way.
Okay.
And then the second they hit the primary, which is nothing compared to July in an election year, they got fried.
Okay.
Just to Mike's point, though, there's something about a sprint that... And Sarah, I'm with you about how debilitating the process is to a human being, but you've got a sprint and you can get from here to there before they have a chance to kill you, which in a long process, it's really hard to do.
Yep, that's the upside is maybe they, if there's lava, the floor is lava, you just like hop really quickly and your feet don't get singed. Steve, we haven't heard from you. You look awake, but I also feel like maybe you sleep with your eyes open.
I woke up because I disagree so strongly with all of this speculation.
Not with me. I think Steve.
No, I'm closer to Mike. I disagree strongly with Sarah. Look, I think there's a lack of imagination right now because people are so locked into this idea that this is a Trump-Biden race. And so the analysis is, oh gosh, if it's not Biden and it's Trump and Trump looks really strong, he may be unbeatable. So I actually I'm working on a piece. I won't get into all the details of it, but I've talked to several Republican strategists about the possibility of sort of a do-over, like a fresh start. So it could be Kamala and somebody else. I'm operating from the assumption that Joe Biden is not going to be the nominee. I feel strongly about that. Kamala and somebody else, or Kamala not at all, and a totally fresh ticket. And one of the first texts I got from a really smart Republican strategist the morning after the Biden debacle debate was, all right, that's so obnoxious. You people are awful.
For podcast listeners, we have a new breaking banner on the bottom of the screen that says, breaking, Steve Hayes is working on a piece.
Why are all of you people laughing?
I'm laughing about it. I was thinking about a joke.
Anyway, I'm trying to make a serious point, but I have obnoxious colleagues. So the morning after the Biden debacle debate, I got a text from somebody who said, "Do you really think Biden's going to drop out?" I said, I think he is. Very smart Republican strategist said, if Biden is not the top of the Democratic ticket, there's no chance Trump wins. And I think, because he's had a good week in, over the past 6 days, there's this sense that the guy's unbeatable, but we're all looking at it in the frame of a Trump-Biden race. There's nothing that this country wants more than to vote for somebody semi-normal. And they don't have that option. And it's not been an option for them for a long time. And Donald Trump had a good week. He appears very strong, again, in the framework of a Trump-Biden race. But how much of his unfavorables changed over the past week, over the past 4 weeks, over the past 6 months? They haven't. The guy's got a ceiling. And I think, right now there's this sense that Republicans are ascendant. Democrats, I mean, if you believe the reports about Stan Greenberg, who's an old school Democratic pollster who's been sending in polling memos to the Biden campaign almost on a daily basis, saying, in effect, not only is Joe Biden going to lose and lose badly, this could be devastating on sort of a generational level for the Democratic Party if Joe Biden doesn't step aside. So Democrats are looking at, what they think is maybe a near extinction event right now, and they're potentially losing to Donald Trump in that way. What if you start fresh and you have an entirely different ticket? And of course,
what if you have a time machine and everyone gets a unicorn? Yeah,
but you know what? You said that about Joe Biden dropping out, and it doesn't seem that crazy anymore, right?
What if Biden says no?
The people who say, yeah, we can't think about these crazy things. None of this would ever happen. Yeah, well, we've been saying that for 8 years, and Donald Trump was never going to be the Republican nominee, and then he was never going to win the election, then he was never going to be president. And then
some of us thought he'd be the Republican nominee.
Can I question the confidence that Biden's actually going to
very early, Steve?
Yeah.
In 2016, you thought he was going to be the Republican nominee?
Oh, no. Sorry.
Okay. So the past decade has seen a series of events take place that the smartest people in politics, including and especially the conventional wisdom set, have told us repeatedly wasn't going to happen. So I guess I'm just a little bit reluctant to say, yeah, none of this stuff could happen, because we've seen so much stuff happen that was never supposed to happen. I think the Democrats, if they started fresh and had a totally new ticket, Gretchen Whitmer and Raphael Warnock, I mean, fill in the blanks, have the possibility of taking what now looks like a huge Republican year and long-term Democratic difficulties and totally flipping it to where the point where Democrats could win states that they're not expected to win. And the conversations we're talking about, the battleground states right now expanding to New Hampshire and New Mexico, Nevada, Minnesota on the Trump side, could end up including a bunch of states that we now think the Republicans are likely to win because Democrats are in such a bad spot.
John,
can I question the confidence that Biden's actually going to drop out? The actual confirmed news that we have in the past 24 hours is Pelosi and Schumer making their move behind the scenes.
Well, that's it for the tease. But if you want the full episode, please become a member of The Dispatch on thedispatch.com. You'll get full access to The Skiff, our members-only podcast. You'll be able to argue with us in the comments, and you'll get a ton of newsletters, including The Collision with Sarah and Mike, Kevin Williamson's Wonderland, Nicotagio's Boiling Frogs, Jonah's Extra G-File, The Morning Dispatch, Dispatch Politics, and more. And most importantly, maybe you'll be edified by the knowledge that you are helping us keep the lights on. So if you enjoyed this and want more, please become a Dispatch member.